Now, you might think I do masked YouTubing because I think it looks cool, but it's actually so I can read my scripts without it being obvious. What's good, everybody? Jenster here. Now, the internet has always been a blessing and a curse for artists. On one hand, getting your art seen by millions has never been easier. Artists can bond with their fandoms despite being miles apart, and even make money. Heck, some people make entire businesses off of what they enjoy. Unfortunately, while being seen is the easiest it's ever been, so is getting your content stolen. Digital art theft can take many forms: impersonation, reposting without credit, straight up selling other people's designs, etc. And now with generative AI, artists are getting their work stolen even more just so machines can create images spontaneously. AI generation involves image scanning under one theme, detecting patterns among each image, and creating something new as close to the theme as possible. Artists consider AI theft because it can't ask permission to scan these images. It also can't obey terms of service like do not edit, and some AI databases compress files of source work to learn from over and over again. AI-generated works are often used for deceptive reasons. Deepfakes are used for blackmail, misinformation is rampant, and some people pretend to make art from scratch so they can take commissions. People try harder to lie about using AI rather than just admitting it, and personally, I don't want my work fueling that fire. Artists are feeling discouraged because there's no safe place to share their work anymore. Some major platforms now have built-in generative AI that trains off of user content. While most of these sites let you opt out of the data training, outside scrapers can still come in, take their pick, and feed that stuff directly into their own generators. Artists have resorted to privating or completely deleting their accounts in an effort to protect their work. Not only that, but people are telling artists they're overreacting, saying if they didn't want their work stolen, they shouldn't post it on the internet for anyone to take. You listening? Oh, wait a minute. You listening? Okay. Someone taking advantage of you is not your fault. Making friends with similar interests or starting a business doesn't just poof in front of you. You have to put yourself out there, and the internet is one of the best places to do that. It breaks the barriers of things like social anxiety, disability, distance, and languages. Posting in order to connect doesn't mean you're asking for trouble. That's like saying if you didn't want your car stolen, you shouldn't leave it in a parking lot. Now, if you forget to lock your car, well, you're still not asking for it. That's going to attract thieves more because they can break in. Same thing with art. If you don't have any form of protection on it, it's much easier to take it. And that's the purpose of this video I'm making. In this video, I want to remind people that it's not over. There are still plenty of ways to protect your art online. While I'm mostly going to be talking about AI theft, I'm also going to be talking about general theft like saving as, tracing, that stuff, because that's still very much a thing. I'll be going over social media sites to choose from, how they address AI, and what you can do with the art files themselves to protect them before, during, and after you post them. While I was working on this video, artist YouTuber Lavender Town made her own video about the actual harms of AI, including environmental risk and copyright infringement. She also made a tutorial on how to use Nightshade, one of the protection methods I'll be talking about, and it inspired me to both try it for myself and research it further for my own video. I highly recommend giving it a watch. She also made a follow-up video addressing some of the arguments people had for AI, which is definitely worth watching as well, because I'm not going to be talking about the major harms of AI, more just what you can do to prevent it from happening to your own work. You ready? Let's talk. Now, I'm not going to tell you which sites you should or shouldn't use. Every site has good and bad traits, and nobody should pressure your decision. If you're blacklisting a site because you don't like their business practices, that's okay. If you're staying on a site because you've grown on it for years and have a large following that you don't just want to leave, that's okay too. I've seen posts warning people about leaving for new sites just because everyone else is, and not doing some research before they do. While their posts had good points, like new sites are most likely going to be much more vulnerable than some of the current ones we're using, the phrasing of these posts just felt really rude. It was along the lines of, "You're foolish if you think these sites are gonna solve all these problems. Here's my mile-long list of reasoning, and if you still leave even after what I've said, whatever happens is on you." I'm not gonna do that, okay? Everyone's just looking for some kind of hope right now, and that's what I'm trying to give. All the info that I'm listing is based on publicly available terms of service and privacy policy, so I'm doing my best to have a very non-biased list of reasons to either use or not use these sites. So here are some site options that I either know of or personally use, and the pros and cons of how they address AI. First up, we have Instagram. Instagram has generative AI built into the site itself. In their privacy policy, they tell users that their data, such as photos and public messages, will be used to train it for generated content. As of this video, there is no way to opt out of it. The closest opt-out method that I could find is a lengthy reporting process that must contain proof of concern, such as your face appearing in a generated result. If you can't prove that your content specifically matches an AI result, they'll deny your claim. I know, I've tried it. At first, I could only find the built-in AI in their search bar that would create responses based on the questions you ask it. However, after some digging, I found under the Instagram Story Maker, you can generate AI stickers for your posts. Further in their policy, Instagram does require AI-generated uploads to be labeled as such and encourages reporting of suspicious posts. I personally left Instagram after they implemented AI back in June of 2024. The lack of choice when it came to AI learning from your data and the very complicated report system didn't sit right with me, and I chose to be done. I took a quick look at Instagram's policies to see if anything changed since leaving and making this video, and so far the claim system is still the same, but they at least have an option for labeling AI during the upload process now. From what I could remember, that was not a thing when I left in June. Up next, we have Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Twitter also has generative AI built into the site called Grok. Grok can respond to commands, generate art, and enhance text both in posts and reply. According to their privacy policy, Grok is trained off of public user data like post interactions. Users can opt out of AI training by going to Settings, Privacy Settings, and Grok to unclick the option. There was a rumor going on a while back that the option to opt out of AI training would be removed, but I checked my browser profile for the recording of this video and that option was still there. I dug as deep as I could, but I couldn't find anywhere in their policy requiring AI content to be labeled as such. When I started this script back in 2024, Grok was only available behind a premium membership. However, as of December 2024, Grok is now publicly available and doesn't require any payment at all. Next, we have DeviantArt. While DeviantArt does have generative AI built into its site, users have the option to opt out of data training. When submitting an upload, users can choose if they want their images to be scraped or not, and from what I can tell, it seems to be checked by default. DeviantArt also requires generated content to be labeled correctly in their privacy policy. Users can suppress how much AI gets recommended to them, and they can further suppress it by muting hashtags in their profile settings. DeviantArt's AI generator called DreamUp is available free for all users. However, users without a premium/core membership can only generate up to 30 images based on 10 prompts per week. It seems DreamUp is at least regulated behind a paywall and doesn't extend past DeviantArt unless the user downloads it and spreads it themselves, of course. Next, we have TikTok and YouTube. I'm morphing them together because I don't have a TikTok, so I only know TikTok based on its privacy policy and not its actual app functions. I am so glad I made this video after TikTok was revived, because if I made this video when TikTok got shut down for a day, but then rewrote my whole script because TikTok was gone, I would have cried. As of this video, YouTube and TikTok do not have generative AI built into their sites. Both of them require that AI generated content be labeled properly and any misinformation or suspicious content to be reported. While they don't generate their own AI, they don't have strong protection against it either. Not to mention there's little to no way to prevent data sharing on either of those sites. YouTube did release a new privacy setting in January 2025, which says data may be shared to third parties to train AI content. However, users are able to opt out and the setting is switched off by default. Next, we have Tumblr. Tumblr doesn't have generative AI built into the site, but it also doesn't require content to be labeled as AI from what I could find. However, it does partner with some AI trainers and shares data with them. Users do have the option to opt out of the data sharing under their blog settings. You can also limit hashtags to further suppress AI from being recommended to you. Next, we have Patreon. Though not like other socials with repost posting and algorithms, Patreon can still help with community building and branding, of course. You can make easy access to commissions and sell content, but you can also make things public without a paywall, such as portfolio work. Patreon doesn't have generative AI or require labeling in a clear way, from what I could find. They don't disallow it, however, at least when it comes to 18+ content. According to their community guidelines, Patreon allows AI-generated adult content featuring hyper-realistic humans as long as consent is documented. It's a little hard to understand, but if you follow Patreon's consent form, it might mean recognizable faces in the content need to give consent for the images they're featured in. That's just a guess though. Their guidelines also say that adult AI with animated or illustrated characters is allowed as long as the subject matter follows their policies. There is some AI that Patreon prohibits. For example, funding/access to adult content generators, deepfakes that aren't satirical, and especially deepfakes for adult content that is falsified. By that I mean the subjects didn't actually partake in the acts featured. I'm trying really hard to make this family friendly. Even though I'm not monetized, I don't want to be age restricted either. Patreon also shares data with third parties, some of which use AI tools, but Patreon is not responsible for the AI tools policies. Now I'm going to list some lesser known sites that people usually don't think of first when it comes to art sharing or AI protection. Toy House, made for storing original characters and adopts, does not have generative AI. It does not discourage it, but requires proper labeling. Unfortunately, registration for Toy House is by invite only, using key codes given by premium users to new invites. Profiles can still be viewed publicly if the user sets them that way, so it has become a major target for scraping and theft in general. You can make posts viewable to logged in users only, which does discourage offsite scrapers a little bit. You can also make your profile viewable by invite only, so only accounts you trust or have given permission to can view your content. Sheezy is an art sharing / community driven site advertised as a safe haven for creativity. In their policy, it does not allow AI generated content at all. It is public, and being so brand new and run by a small team, there's not much protection against scraping right now. Also, because of its infancy, registration is very hard to grab. How it works is 10 slots become available every 8 hours for users to sign up. It's almost like a raffle. I did manage to grab an account, but that's because I checked the availability at 1 in the morning. I gotta say though, the layout of Sheezy is very organized. It reminds me of the early days of DeviantArt, how customizable it used to be. The navigation is easy to follow, and profiles can get even more creative with the help of HTML. You can also make uploads viewable only to logged in users for offsite protection like with Toy House. My favorite feature that Sheezy offers is called Personas. Basically, it's multiple profiles under one account that you can easily switch between. It's helpful for things like role-playing as an OC, keeping mature and regular uploads separate, and organizing fictional worlds without registering new accounts. I like it, and I have major respect for the team behind it. Vimeo is a site for posting high-quality videos. Users who don't want a subscription only have 1 GB of space, so it's not recommended for frequent posting. It's more of a portfolio, archival, indie film site. While it does advertise AI integration, it's mostly for scripts and text, not generated videos. They have stated that they're against unauthorized AI scraping. Lastly, BLUESKY and Kara. BLUESKY is a Twitter-esque platform that's not algorithm-based, meaning it relies on reposting, hashtags, and direct interaction for visibility. It does not have built-in generative AI, but from what I could find, it doesn't discourage it either. Users like it because it has a very positive atmosphere, and recommended content can be custom tailored, so you only see what you want to see. Because it's so new and publicly available, it doesn't have good protection against outside scrapers yet, but it also doesn't partner with any either. Kara is an art site that is completely against AI. It has a more professional atmosphere with portfolio building and job listings, but also functions as an art-specific social media. Kara has one method of protection built into it that I'll go over later, but its infancy means it isn't foolproof yet. It's also constantly dealing with bug fixes and site repair, just from the sheer amount of people trying to upload to it. It definitely has good intentions though, and the developers are still working on it to give artists a safer place to post again. However, as of this video, Kara is having difficulty with their anti-AI program due to the site maintenance. I wouldn't post your work without any protection there right now, but they do have a third-party automation that detects AI posts and removes them, but it's not fueled by user data. These were some of the sites that I either knew of or came across during research. All of the info was based on privacy policies, which all sites have, of course, publicly available. For any platforms I missed, take a look at their policies for AI handling so you can make the decision yourself. If I missed any crucial info though, feel free to write a constructive criticism and or corrections in the comments. Now that I've weighed some options, let's talk about how to keep your post safe during the render process. As of right now, the best defenses against AI scraping are two programs known as Glaze and Nightshade. Created by a team at University of Chicago, Glaze and Nightshade add data and near invisible filters to an image, disrupting AI from learning off of it. While the filters don't look like much to the naked X'd-out eyes, AI learners can't clearly distinguish items in the art and are more likely to make mistakes. Say you have an artwork of a cat and run it through one of these programs. An AI learner might see the image, get confused by the filters, and see a shoe instead of a cat. Then when somebody tries to put in the prompt, cat, into a generative AI learner, it's going to make some weird cat shoe hybrid because it can't figure out what's what. I'll link the places to download these programs in the description. Now, there is a difference between Glaze and Nightshade that's worth mentioning. Glaze is meant to discourage AI learning from art styles in particular. A prompter might ask for Garfield by Van Gogh, and AI would learn from the artist's brushstrokes and color choices to make Garfield in the style of Van Gogh. Glaze would disrupt AI from recognizing those patterns, so it can't make an accurate parody of Van Gogh. Nightshade is more for general art protection. It doesn't recognize patterns, but puts filters over any piece that you give it. It also encrypts any hashtags that you put on it, so when an AI learner is searching these hashtags for results to learn from, it's going to be more likely to land on your polluted image. As great as these programs are, I will share some warnings that are worth knowing before you download them. The processing power required for these programs is hefty. The file sizes themselves aren't that big, but they will make your CPU sweat during a render. Plus, renders can take a really long time to finish, so be prepared to wait. The team behind these programs do offer a web version of Glaze to save on memory, but it's by invite only and is not publicly available yet. Instructions for getting the web version are on the Glaze website. I gave Nightshade a try for myself just to see how it works, and here's what I found. There's a few settings to choose from before making a render. They affect the intensity of the filters. The highest setting will have the most amount of digital poison, but the filters might be really obvious, so keep that in mind before running a render. The lowest settings still has a decent filter amount, but the minimum render time according to the program is still 30 minutes. It's going to take some patience. Longer render time actually makes the filters more obvious. I assumed longer rendering was easy on your PC, to give it some time to think, but it actually gives the program more time to add as much poison as possible, and that's why your CPU sweats. It is adding more to the picture, not taking its time to add the right amount. It also helps if you close background programs during the render. The program won't start if too much memory is being used, and it will keep your PC from breathing fire during the process. Unfortunately, you also can't preview what the render will look like before it's finished. So if you aren't satisfied with the end result, you'll have to start all over again. Now, I know these sound like a lot of cons, but I'm not listing them to be discouraging. These are just things to keep in mind before you test the program, so you don't get frustrated or assume it's not working right. As of making this video, Glaze and Nightshade have proven to corrupt AI learners and make clear prompt generation difficult. While it isn't super polished right now, I personally take comfort in knowing there is something I can do to protect my art that works. Here's a result of a test render I did. Don't worry, Kitty Melodies is my old DeviantArt name. I forgot to change it for this video. I'm not stealing somebody's art. Even with the lowest settings, you can still see some of the filtering. However, I don't think it's enough to be a distraction. It just makes it look a little pixelated, that's all. I'd be satisfied with sharing this as a preview image and keeping the clearer one private for something like Patreon or DMCA if it came to it. Now, there's been some pushback from AI supporters saying that Glaze and Nightshade don't actually work, how enough editing to the the original image can remove the filters and artists are just delaying the inevitable. But here's the thing, as of making this video anyway, there isn't enough concrete evidence to support that. All the claims saying that Glaze and Nightshade can be cracked are just people saying so without any info to back it up. The CEO of one of these AI programs even came out and said artists using Glaze and Nightshade to protect their work is an abuse of fair use. No, it's not. That's like saying putting a lock on my bike when I park it outside the grocery store is abuse because someone might really want to use it. That's the thing. The people in support of AI are only saying this to scare artists out of using these programs because they know they work. An artist is going to see the comment and be like, oh, well, if Glaze and Nightshade don't even work, then what's the point? The thing is, they do. Are these programs completely foolproof? No, because humans still make errors, but they are proven to work, and that personally gives me enough comfort in them. But regardless, say you don't have a device that can handle the processing power of these devices. Especially if you're a traditional artist and take pictures of your work on your phone, there's no way to use Glaze and Nightshade on your phone as of right now. So what can you do? Well, I'm going to share some other things you can do to protect your work without Glaze and Nightshade that could still come in handy. First and foremost, watermark, watermark, watermark. If you're not a fan of the filtering effects of Glaze and Nightshade, or you just don't have the processing ability to run them, watermarking is the next best thing. Not only that, but watermarking is also one of the best ways to protect against regular art theft as well. See, pretty much all artists put their name at least in the corner of the artwork to let the world know who made it. But in the digital space, that doesn't work as well anymore, because now you can easily crop out the corner of the picture, and whether it looks tampered with or not, most people aren't going to bother to reverse image search. As well as general theft, watermarking can also help prevent against AI scraping. The reason why it's not as effective as Nightshade and Glaze is because those programs tend to poison the actual file information of the art, while watermarks just affect the surface value. But that doesn't mean it can't come in handy at all. See, AI generators learn from the clearest images, pieces that don't have a lot of noise in them. That's why the faces of AI generated content tend to be really clear, because artists tend to put a lot of detail in those areas, but things like backgrounds can look very melty and like they're blending into one another. So if a thief is looking to steal your artwork and feed it to an AI generator and you happen to have a watermark on it, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to have to heavily edit it to the point where it's not like the original image in the first place, or the AI is going to learn to add elements of that watermark, like random shapes and color changes, into the pieces, and it's going to ruin the results. So that's why having a watermark, at least if you don't have the capacity for Glaze and Nightshade, is much better than having no protection at all. Now, the most common method of watermarking is taking your logo, placing it somewhere in the middle of the art piece, and lowering the opacity. But when it comes to AI scraping, that might still leave a lot of space for AI scrapers to work with and still learn from rather clearly. So something else that artists are doing is what I call the textile method. It's when they take their logo or text of their username, make a repeating pattern out of it, overlay the whole pattern, and then lower the opacity of that pattern. That provides way more noise over the entire art piece, making it much harder to edit and for AI to learn from it. As I said before, AI learns from the clearest pictures, so the more noise that you have, the more it's going to incorporate that noise into its results. Now, there is a pretty big and obvious drawback that I do understand. With all the noise on the art, it makes it hard to actually appreciate it and notice the finer details. But if you are worried that it's going to distract too much from the art itself, something that you can do is have a preview image of your piece with all the watermarks on it to share to your public social media. Take your clearer image and put it on a private portfolio such as Patreon, Ko-fi, or even a website that you make yourself. That way it's either invite only or people have to pay to see it. And what thief is going to pay to steal from you? I mean, come on. Not that it would never happen, but it's a lot less likely. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to gain support from people who legitimately want to see your craft. So while not foolproof, of course, it's certainly better than nothing and a good alternative if you can't process programs such as Glaze and Nightshade. Another way of adding noise to an image to disrupt AI and theft in general that's not as busy as logos or text are disturbance overlays. Disturbance overlays are kind of like adding TV static to a piece, as they flood your art with random shapes and colors. Some art programs like Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint come with their own noise filters built in that you can play with, But if you're using a device that doesn't have that, or you're a traditional artist and do all the editing afterwards, there are plenty of artists online who are offering free disturbance overlays specifically for anti-AI. Just make sure it's free though, and that they're actually giving permission. Like, I wouldn't get it from like a wallpaper website without typing in free to use. If you don't have a method of making one your own, there are plenty online that you can use for free so that you're not stealing either. Moving away from the noise filters and watermarks for a second, I'm also going to talk about time lapses and speed paints. Now yes, AI is learning how to make videos as well as speed paints and time lapses, but it's still obvious to tell when it was actually made by a person and not a computer. Now something else that's been happening lately is people have actually been going to art posts and putting in the comments AI accusations, whether they actually mean it or they're just trolling. Because unfortunately, some people's art styles, especially with the amount of detail that they put into their piece, can look like AI from a glance. So some people think that they are just pointing something out, but in reality, they're just hurting the artists that spent all that time to make that picture. Posting speed paints, edits, and time lapses does help prove a picture is yours because it shows the process of the picture being made. What people who like to pretend that they made AI pieces like to do is they will either trace over an AI generated image or just straight up post an AI image and say that they made it. Because of this, they can't prove that they made it from hand, so if somebody asks them to do that, then they're out of luck. Now, keep in mind, some people are just gonna troll and you can't reason with them. Doesn't matter how much you argue, doesn't matter how much video you actually show of you physically making every single brushstroke, some people just aren't gonna listen. But it does at least help prove that a human made the art. Back to talking about how that actually protects the artwork itself though. When you show yourself physically working on it or taking a picture of your workstation, it makes it easier to trace back. Because if somebody tries to impersonate you for regular theft and say, I made this, all you have to do is show a picture of your bedroom or your desk or just another picture unrelated to the art to prove, hey, this is mine. Plus, it does also help with AI learning as well, because when your final results are your workstation and your time lapses and your speed paints and you physically working on the picture, that gives AI less to work with when it comes to just making a picture in general. It's going to keep trying to add the subjects working on the art to their results instead of just making a clear print convention-worthy result like we see online all the time. I'm gonna sound like a broken record at this point, but it's true. The more noise in a picture, the harder it is for AI to learn. So the noise of your workstation, the noise of your desk, the noise of the objects around you are going to confuse the AI and keep it from making clear images. Not the most effective method, of course, as actually protecting the art file itself, but still, better than nothing. Now, moving away from watermarking for a second, the next thing you can do to protect your art is saving the file in a smaller size. Here's why that's important, at least to general theft. Let's say somebody wants to take your art, turn it into a pattern, and put it on some leggings. When they take your high quality image and shrink it to make more room for a repeating pattern, even though the original file is shrunken, it's going to retain its high quality. That's why high quality images are so desirable to thieves, so that they can reproduce it without losing any of that quality. That's why I recommend, just before you upload your image to whatever social you're gonna put it on, go into your settings and shrink it to at least 50%. Here's the reason that can be helpful. Number one, if somebody were to steal your art after uploading the smaller size, you'd be able to write a DMCA takedown in order to get it removed and be able to prove that you have the original high quality image. At the same time, if a thief did decide to go ahead with turning your art into something like a repeating pattern and they needed to make it bigger in order to fit on whatever canvas they're using, when you increase the size of an already small image, you're also increasing the size of the pixels contained in that art. So when they make it bigger in an effort to make it clearer, it's actually going to look more pixelated because the pixels themselves are growing. While not exactly the best defense against AI, it is a better option for just protecting against impersonation or reselling theft. And finally, the last piece of advice I'm going to give for protecting your art online is pick your battles. Now, I know it's not the best thing that people want to hear, but unfortunately, the internet is dishonest. Like I said before, you're not asking to get stolen from just because you post something on the internet, but because some people still are dishonest and really don't care, they're probably still gonna take your stuff even with the protection methods on them. But that doesn't mean it isn't important to have. By protecting your work before you post it, if somebody does go ahead and steals it, even with the protection on it, you yourself can decide if it's worth taking it down or letting it go. Let me give you an example. I've had my art stolen before and reposted onto other people's profiles. I did go through the report process because it was very obvious my watermark was still on there, and because of that, they were able to be taken down in 24 hours or less. But there has been cases where my art has been stolen, and I personally decided it wasn't worth the headache. See, years ago, I had this Eddsworld alternate universe series that I made that exploded in popularity. I've got a pretty big following from it and lots of fan art. Now, because it got popular, it got a lot of outside attention as well. One of my watchers had mentioned me saying that somebody had taken a bunch of my art of that series and put it in a cringe compilation. So, of course, I looked it up and they were right. There was a Eddsworld cringe compilation with a lot of my art pieces front and center for everyone to see. Now, of course, I was mad. Somebody took my art, put it in a cringe compilation, and said it was weird. Like, how dare they? Now, because my watermark was on those pieces, if I really wanted to report that video and get it taken down, I could have. Would I have won? Who knows, but I still could have tried. Right before I reported the video for theft of content, I took a step back and was like, wait a minute. This is free advertisement. Look, if somebody came across a cringe compilation of Eddsworld art, recognized me from my signature, and came to my DeviantArt profile to tell me about it, then who knows how many people were gonna come to my profile to look at the art because they actually liked it. Plus, you know, people are allowed to have an opinion. Like, no, it's not cool that somebody thinks my art is cringy, but they're allowed to think that way. We've seen plenty of examples of people crashing out over a matter of opinion, and obviously it doesn't really help their reputation very well now, does it? I didn't want that to happen to me, so I said, whatever. Of course, that's just me. If somebody else felt that it was really defaming or something like that, then they would be completely in their right to take action. But for me, I decided it wasn't worth it, and nothing ever came from it. Even after that video was posted, rarely did people ever actually come to my DeviantArt account to tell me that my art was cringy. Maybe once or twice, but not in numbers that really bothered me, you know? I'll even give an example of theft with higher stakes, so to say. So, back in the days of Google+, you were able to make kind of a Mineo app-esque, like, spaces for whatever you wanted. And because my DeviantArt account was popular for that Eddsworld alternate universe series, I had stumbled across the Google Plus forum that was dedicated to that alternate universe I was talking about, just from Googling my username on a whim. Here's the thing though, the forum was filled of NSFW art of the characters from this series I had created, and while I can't really stop people from making that art, the problem was the person who opened the forum was using my username. They were pretending to be me at the time to run this forum. And once again, I was mad. Somebody was pretending to be me and allowing this content of the characters I created, making it look like I was okay with it. If it was just art from the fans, I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it, but they had actually been posting my art as well. I could have reported them for that, and I almost did. But right before I did, I took a step back again. See, my watchers, then and now, know that I personally do not draw anything NSFW. It's just not what I want to do. I have it front and center on my profiles when it comes to things like art trades and commissions that I don't do NSFW. So yes, my username was being used to promote this forum, but any of my watchers who had known me long enough would know it would seem kind of fishy that I would be allowing that on another account. So instead of bringing any attention to it, I just left it alone. And it never came back to bite me. Nobody ever came to me asking if I would draw NSFW of these characters. Nobody even mentioned it to me. Unlike the cringe compilation, nobody knew this forum existed and came to warn me about it. And then eventually Google Plus died anyway, so no blood on my hands. And like I said, that was my personal decision. Somebody else would be within their right to report it, so if you ever stumble across your art anywhere it's not usually supposed to be, decide for yourself if it's worth going through the process. Because there is a potential that you might not win the case. More than likely, you will, especially if you provide evidence of the original files, but keep in mind that because of things like fair use, it's a possibility that it won't go through. So don't crash out, burn, and lose your reputation over something that might not be that big of a deal, but it doesn't hurt to at least try, okay? Because when you think about it, there's a lot of content that we like to consume that's technically theft. TikTok compilations, most of the time the uploaders of those videos didn't get permission to compile the videos. And it has happened before that people who made compilations of TikTok videos did get copyright struck because the owners of the content didn't want their stuff taken. And though it stinks because we really like to watch those compilations, the owners of the videos are within their right to do that takedown. Meme/Reddit videos, out of context videos, streamer highlights. We technically don't have explicit permission to put those videos together, but more often than not, the creators of the content don't care because it's free advertising. See, I plan on making a video about terms of service and how to write them, because you can give permission to people without talking to them directly. And if you give that kind of permission in the form of a terms of service, then there's nothing to worry about. You're fine. I'll give an example of that too. I had made a Senor Palo parody animation of one of his Johnny and Eel cartoons using my husband and I. See, Senor Palo says in the description of his videos that fans are allowed to redistribute his content as long as they give credit and it's not for monetization. And that's what I had done. Granted, I didn't do it right. I should have done it differently. I had credited Senor Palo and Johnny and Eel in the description of the video. The problem was it was a YouTube short and not many people actually check the description of the YouTube short. They just watch and scroll. So somebody had wrote a comment on the short saying that I was trying to steal Senor Palo's content without credit. They even accused me of tracing, and I didn't trace it. I had a reference of the original animation on my animation timeline and I drew next to it, not over it. But I can understand why they thought that because I mimicked that style really well. Anyway, back to my point. They were right. Even though I credited him at all, I didn't credit Senor Palo in a way that it was easily seen. So I apologized for doing that and put the credit to the source material in the title, not the description, so that no matter how you watch the short, the credit is easily accessible. Now, could Senor Palo put a copyright strike on my video if he really wanted to? Yes. And there's the potential that he would probably win because he could prove the content was originally from his video. But is he going to? Not likely, because look at the view count on that video. That's giving him a ton of free publicity. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I'm showing him my gratitude for making the video by making a parody. And that's what it boils down to for anything. When you make a meme based off of a template or use a piece of audio for an animation, give credit to the original artist. No, you might not have explicit permission to do so, but as long as the original owner of the content doesn't say anywhere, do not take, edit, or remix, giving credit at least tells people, no, I didn't originally come up with this, but I'm not trying to claim it. Now, I can't speak for everybody, of course, but most people, I would imagine, would be flattered that somebody would take the time to give them this tribute. It's only wrong when they don't give the proper credit or specifically try to claim it as theirs. Now, the reason why I mention any of this in the first place is to make sure that you, as an artist, are not stealing anything either. You want to protect your own art from thieves, but you don't want to become the thief, you know? Like, I know it's the internet and it's going to happen, but it really irritates me when I see things on places like Pinterest and Reddit where it says "not mine" in the title. Like, you had to have gotten that from somewhere. Even if you Google searched it, as long as the website isn't virus ridden, at least find out where the post came from so you can credit it. Like, it's not necessarily wrong to repost someone's artwork unless they explicitly say please don't, but if you're going to show off some cool art that you found, credit the maker. Who knows, somebody could want to commission that artist because they thought the art was really cool, but they don't know where to go because it wasn't explained who made it. Now, real quick, before we end the video, I want to cover the other side a little bit. I understand that not everybody using AI is doing it to be malicious. You know, when you're not at the skill set you want to be yet, it can be hard to visualize your vision. Some people just want to see what their D&D characters look like. Some people just need YouTube thumbnails and don't know how to photo edit. Some people just want reference sheets that they can use to improve their art. But the thing is, I personally cannot get behind AI just because the cons outweigh the pros to me. And I've even heard of something that people will do where they use AI to create a character for them, but then they commission an actual artist to refine it and give them a character that's theirs. Because here's the thing, as of right now, the law states that if a generative AI image is not edited by human hand in some way, it can't be copywritten. Because that's what a lot of people do. They'll just run a prompt through generative AI, take the picture, and turn around and sell it, whether they are actually pretending they made it or admitting it's AI. But what that law means is that if you run your prompt through AI, take the picture that the AI made, don't do anything with it at all, and then put a price tag on it, if somebody decides to steal it and do the same thing, you can't sue them. You can't take any legal action at all because there's no copyright. Now, how much human editing needs to be involved, I'm not sure yet, but at least some needs to be provided if you want to have claim over that picture. Now, by getting an artist to make you something, the human involved editing is already there from the beginning. Once that artist exchanges that character for money, the copyright is yours. See, because how copyright works, at least in the art world, whatever you make with your hands, you own. The subject matter can get dicey depending on if it's fan art or not, but you own the art. You own the thing that you made with your hands. You might not own the subject matter, but you own the physical art. And that's why feeding art into a generative AI machine is considered theft. They are taking what you own to turn into something else. And I personally don't think it's free use, because free use means editing enough for parody or educational reasons. Depending on what you make with the AI, you might have a point with the parody part, but you can't really use it for educational purposes because the picture's not real. But let me be clear, that's just outside looking in. I don't know the actual law on that. But I'll even offer some alternatives to AI that you can use without theft and retain the copyright. Need help creating a character for something like D&D or just because? Doll makers, Pick Crew. As long as the owner didn't use AI to make it, Pick Crew can be used to construct characters out of pre-made assets that artists have made to be used for free. And if you do want to commission somebody to actually make the character for you, just credit the doll maker. Need assets for a YouTube video? There are free to use picture galleries online. I personally like to use freepik.com for assets, not sponsored by the way. They offer thousands if not millions of user submitted content to be used for whatever you need. And all they ask for is credit in the socials that it's going to. For whatever reason that you're using it, just credit them and you're allowed to use it. Don't worry, if you want to use Freepik without the AI, they also have an option to turn it off and not recommend any results for that. But that's what I mean. As long as wherever you're getting the content has a terms of service that can be followed, and as long as you credit them, period, you can use stuff for free. No, you might not own the copyright depending on what you need it for, but you don't own the copyright with AI either. So it's still lose-lose. But if I still can't convince you to stop using AI, there's at least better ways of using it. Number one, don't lie about it. Sure, I bet there are some people that legitimately do want to get AI commissions, but tricking people into commissioning you, conveniently leaving out the fact that it's AI, is wrong. In fact, it's illegal. It's a scam because you are offering goods under false pretense, and in the right legal battle can escalate. Plus, if you do decide to turn from your ways and start over, people are going to be a lot less forgiving and it's going to be a lot harder. And I know people that are just using it as a toy don't want to get bullied for it, but it's going to be a lot worse if you lie about it, people find out, and become relentless. It's not worth the stain to your reputation, okay? And also, don't infiltrate the spaces online that don't want to see it. They are allowed to say no. Just as there are plenty of artist subreddits, for example, that say no AI allowed, there are plenty of subreddits that do allow it. share it to those. But let me reiterate, it is not abuse for artists to want to protect their work if they don't want it used for AI. Besides legality, it's a matter of opinion. An artist can have an opinion on not liking AI and doing something about it. And I'll admit it, if you are in favor of AI, you are allowed to not like my opinion about it. But me acting on that fact and protecting my art from being used for AI, that's not abuse. So to quickly recap, the best ways to protect your art from both AI and general theft are as follows. Glaze and Nightshade are the best for AI because they put a filter over your work to make it harder for machines to scrape from and corrupt the actual file information. They are hefty when it comes to CPU usage, so keep that in mind when performing a render. If you don't have a device that is able to handle that, the next best alternatives would be watermarking, disturbance overlays, speed paints and time lapses, and smaller file sizes. But when you're not sure about an artist's terms of service, always at least credit them. And I'll also mention, you really shouldn't be selling AI. Because here's the thing, a lot of AI results are trained off of specific pieces of art. So more often than not, the actual result that AI makes is specifically based on somebody's individual piece. That's why I don't see it as morally right to sell the content, because in a way you are selling somebody else's content. It just doesn't 100% look like theirs. Not only that, but you especially shouldn't be selling it if you're not going to admit it's AI. If you admit that it's AI and somebody buys it, well then there you go. But conveniently leaving out the fact that it's AI in order to scam and retain the non-existent copyright, that's not cool. Now, I know this video is probably going to garner some hate. I expect it though, so I'm not too worried about it. I tried my hardest to put a lot of research and effort into this video because I don't want to give any false information myself. That being said, if anything does need to be corrected, feel free to put constructive criticism in the comments, and please include some kind of evidence in your constructive criticism, like an article or something, because like I said, I don't want to spread any misinformation either. I just want to give artists some hope back and let them know that it's not over. You are not replaceable. You do not pour in your heart, soul, and hard work for nothing. Yes, people are going to try and bully you out of it. People are going to try and say artists are obsolete and that none of this stuff works, but it is so much better than nothing. We do not need to roll over and just hand over all of our hard work because the future is now. We can do something about it. It's okay to not agree with us, but we are allowed to do something about it. Anyway, thank you for sticking around for the entirety of this video. I'm glad you're here. If you like what you saw and would like to support me, feel free to give me a like, maybe subscribe, and check out my Patreon for membership rewards. I have rewards such as early viewings of videos, behind the scenes content, and bloopers. Watermarking is also one of the best. I'll see you next time. Love you, bless you, peace out.